Good evening and welcome to the broadcast this Thursday night. Our top stories. Night. Big names to fall over links to the Akasha brothers. Investigators now close in on judges who received bribes to frustrate the Akasha's extradition to the US to face drug charges. Also tonight, out went Fazul Mohammed and now in comes Franklin Mutuma Nkanata. What awaits him at the helm of the NGO Coordination Board? Plus,
we are not very much aware, far from where they must be. We are closing in to make sure that we arrest them. 14
arrested and questioned as hunt for Italian aid worker kidnapped in Malindi intensifies. And also ahead, the anger over police extrajudicial killings roils. Battle to have trigger-happy police pay moves from the streets to the courts.
NTV Tonight with Smriti Vidyarthi.
It's 9 o'clock. Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa. To our top story, 2 High Court judges and 2 magistrates face arrest and possible extradition to the United States to face charges of bribery linked to the delayed extradition of 2 Akasha brothers to the US. NTV's Seth Olale reports that apart from the senior judicial officers, a sitting governor and a cabinet secretary are among 10 prominent Kenyans also being sought by the US Department of Justice in relation to the alleged crime that occurred between 2014 and 2016.
In what is shaping up to be Kenya's biggest interstate drug trafficking investigation, the Director of Public Prosecution, Nurdin Haji, is considering granting the US Department of Justice the go-ahead to investigate over 10 Kenyans suspected of taking bribes from the Akasha drug barons. A cabinet secretary, a governor, a top lawyer, a prosecutor and a senior detective are among the over 10 prominent Kenyans that the US Department of Justice is investigating over allegations of taking bribes from the Akashas. One of the Akasha lawyers has denied receiving bribes from his clients and is unaware of any investigations being conducted by the US Department of Justice.
Let them say which lawyer it is. But one thing I can tell you for a fact is this. Lawyers, we do our work. We go to court. We defend our clients. We bring forward their points and their opinions and what they want done. If there were any allegations of bribery, where were they reported?
The developments mean that those who handled the Akasha extradition cases from 2014 may have cause for concern as investigators are particularly focused on cases that were before the courts. They are the then Mombasa Chief Magistrate Maxwell Gisheru, High Court Judge Edward Murithi, Justice Maureen Odero, Justice Martin Muya, Appellate Judges Hannah Okwengu, Milton Makandia and Fatuma Sishale, Chief Magistrate Julius Nangea, Justice Retired Anyara Mkule and Justice Chepkwony.
I mean, what is it in your interpretation? What did you mean?
During an interview on Citizen TV, Haji indeed confirmed that his office is closing on 2 judges and 2 magistrates suspected of frustrating the extradition case of Baktash Akasha and his brother Ibrahim Akasha between 2014 and 2016 when the 2 were finally extradited by the FBI to the US on a chartered plane to face charges relating to drug trafficking.
You only have to look at the Akasha case in New York. And this will come out soon. There are judicial officers who are compromised. And I don't think anybody would stand up and say, this is revisiting. The Americans have the evidence.
Although the DPP has not outlined the specific timeline when the arrest and possible extradition of the suspects will take place, his office is reviewing the evidence submitted by the US Department of Justice with a view to arrest and prosecute them.
I mean, there's always been arguments that we are revisiting, or because of the president's statement that we are revisiting with the judiciary.
Especially for the DCJ case?
Yeah, especially for that case.
Chief Justice David Maraga recently strongly denied that the judiciary was corrupt.
The assurance I can give the country is that the judiciary is ready and we are going to deal with those cases as they come. We are going to deal with those cases, and as I've said, I have given instructions that these cases have got to be given priority so that we deal with that.
The attorney is reading mischief in the investigations being conducted by the FBI, adding that the U.S. authorities broke the law by illegally extraditing his clients to the U.S. to face charges relating to drug trafficking.
All they are saying is that this extradition was being stopped because of bribery. Was the extradition stopped? It was never stopped. It was ongoing. And I can tell you for one thing, let the government of the day not run away from its responsibility. It should have protected our people. The process was ongoing. The weakness of the government cannot be said to be the weakness of the judiciary.
Baktash Akasha and Ibrahim Akasha, who pleaded guilty to drug trafficking charges last month in New York, confessed under oath to having offered millions of shillings to judicial officers and policemen as inducement to forestall their extradition to the U.S. to face drug-related charges. Next year, January, will mark exactly 2 years since the Akashas were extradited to the United States of America to face charges relating to drug trafficking. Attempts by Akasha's mother to have her sons returned home has not bore fruit. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
Well, be sure to get your copy of the Daily Nation for more details on this unfolding and explosive story that may just hit right at the heart of the judiciary. Right, to other stories making headlines today. Police have arrested 14 suspects in connection with the abduction of a 23-year-old Italian aid worker, Silvia Romano. Now, the Italian volunteer was abducted by unknown gunmen on Tuesday night. Kilifi Police Commander Frederick Ochieng says that the suspects have been interrogated and have relayed crucial information that the multi-agency team in the field conducting the search and rescue mission is using to pursue the attackers. Police have also confiscated 2 motorcycles believed to have been used by the attackers to carry out the operation before fleeing across River Galana into the vast forest in Galana Kulalu. NTV's Kevin Mutai with the latest developments.
It has been 2 days since the abduction of Italian Silvia Romano by gunmen armed with AK-47 rifles at Chakama Trading Center in Kilifi County. Romano, who was an aid worker, had volunteered to help children from needy backgrounds, has since not been traced, a situation that continues to send shockwaves through Chakama and its environs.
The Italian community is very sad about what happened to a compatriot, and to some Kenyans were wounded. The banditos, they came maybe late because they want maybe to get money from more of those Italians.
She was with 2 other colleagues who left a day before her abduction. Romano has once lived in Likoni, Mombasa County before relocating to Chakama in Kilifi, where she found a new home with 1 people. Police have arrested 14 people and impounded 2 motorcycles believed to have been used by the gunmen before getting dumped in the forest. Police say the suspects have given useful information that will be helpful to the multi-agency team conducting the operation.
We are following the right leads to make sure that we nab them and bring them to book. Yeah, we are not very much aware, far from where they must be. We are closing in to make sure that we arrest them.
Romano's abduction has particularly sparked fears among tourism sector players in the region. Reports have emerged that some tourists have already cancelled their bookings for fear of being attacked. But the Ministry of Tourism has moved to reassure them, and in a statement sent to newsrooms said, and I quote, "The ministry would like to affirm that this is an isolated incident that occurred well away from any popular tourist centers in Kilifi County. Further, no hotel was affected, nor any tourist was injured during the incident." End of quote. The ministry says that the coastal region is safe and under tight surveillance, especially during this peak season.
We are already experiencing some cancellations in the hotels. As you know, we are going into the high season. It has really damaged, and we are all panicking now.
4 victims who sustained gunshot injuries are recuperating at Malindi Sub-County Hospital. A 10-year-old boy who was shot in the left eye was referred to Mombasa Coast General Hospital for an operation to remove a bullet that is still lodged in his eye. Kevin Mutai, NTV, in Kilifi County.
All right, now to a story about members of the Republican Council and more than 40 suspected members of the Mombasa Republican Council, MRC, have been arrested in Likoni, Mombasa. The suspects were arrested at Shelley Beach while allegedly taking an illegal oath, according to the Likoni Deputy County Commissioner. Now, he said that the suspects had organized a feast when they were nabbed. Tens of MRC membership cards were also recovered during the operation by police officers from Likoni Police Station. Police sources said the suspects are from Kwale, Lamu and Kilifi counties. Now, previously, MRC members were arrested for engaging in criminal activities, especially in Mombasa, Kwale and Kilifi counties, and charged with murder and attacks on police stations.
Out of the 46, there were 29 people who are having MRC cards, because we found some paravanalias, we have found some skin of a cow which had been slaughtered, and all other paraphernalia that can be used before court tomorrow morning.
Now, 22 families of slain suspected criminals in different areas in Nairobi have filed a petition against the National Police Service for what they term as extrajudicial killings committed by a killer squad within the police force. The petition, that is strongly backed by the International Justice Mission, which is listed as the 24th petitioner, and which decries the failure of the police to treat every suspect as innocent unless proven otherwise by a court of law. The petition lists the Attorney General and the Police Inspector General as the first and second respondents. NTV's Charity Mwangi has the details.
It has been a tug of war between police in Dandora, Mathare and Kayole and area residents whenever suspected criminals are shot. On one side is usually the aggrieved relatives who defend their kin and insist on their innocence or the right to due process. They view the shootings as outright murders perpetrated by those in authority, the police.
Huyu kijana alikuwa analia hata anasema yeye sio mwizi, mimi nalala tu hapa, mimi ni desperate. Yenyewe mtoto anaweza ingia kwa tabia mbaya, lakini kuna mahali nafaa mtoto apelekwe, si kushikwa tu na kuuliwa tu kama mnyama hivyo.
Police officers present a different narrative, one that seeks to show the inhumane acts the suspects are accused of having committed. This with the aim of showing the uphill task they have to shoulder to maintain law and order in such troubled, crime-prone areas.
Utaweka kisu ama kufe kitu moja, lakini Mungu mko na mimi.
The battle has now shifted from the streets to the corridors of justice, with the police now expected to defend against accusations of failing to use constitutionally accepted methods of dealing with suspected criminals. In the petition, the petitioners seek to have the court declare that 1. The Inspector General of Police, listed as the second respondent, has failed in his constitutional obligation to investigate instances where the use of force by police officers led to death in total violation of Article 244 of the Constitution and Paragraph 6 of the 6th Schedule of the National Police Service Act. 2. That the failure of the Inspector General of Police to investigate instances where the use of force led to death amounts to violation of the petitioner's right to equal protection and benefits of the law. 3. That the Inspector General of Police starts prompt, thorough, impartial and effective investigations into the circumstances that led to the deaths and report progress to court within such periods that the court directs. The petitioners are expected to present before court witnesses from families still grieving the loss of their long-departed loved ones. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
All right, to education matters now, and parents of St. Jude Luyeke Primary School in Kandui constituency, that's in Bungoma County, stormed the institution today, citing poor performance in this year's Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination. The highest pupil had 295 marks, while the lowest scored just 95 marks. And the angry parents are also demanding the transfer of the head teacher.
There was drama today at St. Jude Luyeke Primary School in Bungoma County as angry parents stormed the institution. Reason: the school recorded poor grades in this year's Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations. Out of 83 registered candidates, only 7 pupils managed to score above 250 marks. The top student had 295 marks, while the lowest scored 95 marks. Parents are concerned that majority of the pupils scored less than 100 marks in the exam.
Katika lugha ya Kiswahili, mtoto amepata 1%. Sielewi serikali waliandamaka mtoto ama mtoto hakuwa anasoma. Hii shule yetu ya Luyeke kuna walimu wanawake peke yake. Tuko na mwalimu mmoja mwanaume ambapo anasaidia hii shule. Hao wengine sijui kazi yao ni gani. Ukikuja hapa shule wanaona wanatondoa mboga, wanafanya visarakasi hapa, wanashuka maneno ya kushuka saluni iko kwa hii shule.
The parents claim the poor performance had been attributed to laxity among teachers who are reluctant to improve pupils' grades.
Mwaka uliopita hii shule ilifanya vibaya sana. Tukakuja hapo walimu wakatuambia kwamba next year wanaenda ku make sure shule ina perform. But more was shule this year imefanya mbaya sana kuliko last year.
Na hiyo shule suni tunaiconvert to senior polytechnic. Wafunza hapa masonry, plumbing, vitu vingine. Mambo ya kupata marks 91 hatutaki. Wanaitisha pesa mingi, 6,000.
The parents are also demanding the transfer of the head teacher. They also decried poor infrastructure and lack of representation in the board of management. Rozongoi, NTV.
7 suspects have been arrested for failure to appear before court to answer to charges of exam irregularity in Kuresoi, Nakuru County. The suspects comprise of the principal of St. Peter's Cherisikwa Secondary School in Kuresoi North, a supervisor, 3 invigilators and a candidate accused of attempting to facilitate an impersonator to write the exam on behalf of a registered candidate at the school. Now, the 7 will remain in police cells for a second day running as the police are still piecing together evidence to present before the court. It's 1:15 the hour. Time for a breather here on NTV Tonight, but stay with us, there's more to come. Welcome back to NTV Tonight. The calls for a referendum to rearrange the structure of the executive, strengthen devolution and fix election-related conflicts have gained momentum today after religious leaders and COTU termed it the best solution in ending negative ethnicity. The COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli and the religious leaders say that elections in the country only benefit a few. NTV's Silas Apollo with more.
Is detailed too.
Speaking when they appeared before the Building Bridges initiative today, the religious leaders and COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli said that election had become a matter of life and death. Politicians, they say, leave little to chance in the fight for elective positions, most of which leave the country more volatile every election cycle. Atwoli, who was the first to make his presentation before the team, says that the result has been a country left so divided that even neighbors and friends turn against one another.
Let us not have this a system that a winner takes it all. Some people don't know how to share.
His proposal is that the constitution should be changed to make the presidency all-inclusive.
Let us amend our constitution and let us address governance areas. I'm a Kenyan. And let us recognize that we have major communities in this country.
The religious leaders, on the other hand, had more proposals, including the creation of additional positions, such as that of the Prime Minister, a reduction in the number of MPs, as well as a strengthening of devolution through additional funding.
The Constitution be amended to provide for an executive that includes the President, Deputy President, Prime Minister, and 2 Deputy Prime Ministers. This will ensure that the presidency is not overbearing and that it is accountable to Parliament through the Prime Minister appearing before the National Assembly, while Cabinet Secretaries appear before committees of Parliament. The 5 must be from different ethnic communities.
But this is not the first time that calls for a change in law are being made. NASA leader Raila Odinga, the proponent, has argued that the presidential system of government adopted in Naivasha during the final phase of the constitutional review process is a winner-take-all model that has proved unworkable in Kenya. Some fellow opposition leaders, such as Kalonzo Musyoka, have also supported the calls, but which have been opposed by Deputy President William Ruto and Council of Governors Chairman Josephat Nanok.
While it was the contention of both COTU and NCCK that Kenya is one of the most progressed countries democratically in the region, elections was still an emotive issue, and so they hope that their submissions today will help address these concerns. Silas Apollo, NTV.
The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nordin Haji, has stated that other than upscaling the war on economic crimes and ensuring solid convictions, his office also aims to give all Kenyans an opportunity for a fair trial based on the evidence and cases that his officers will present in court. And the DPP's sentiments were echoed by various speakers this afternoon at the graduation ceremony of 77 new prosecutors who finished a 2-month training before being posted to all the 47 counties in the country in the Public Prosecution's office.
An additional 77 fresh prosecutors at the DPP's office is a measure that stakeholders hope will ensure that more Kenyans get their day in court soon enough. As the prosecutor gets working to bolster the already 700 prosecutors working across the country, they have been warned against being compromised in their job, hurting the same people they are supposed to serve.
The case stands or falls with the charge sheet. If the charge sheet is defective, there is no case, amnesia. The court is entitled to throw it.
But even as he prepares for the battle of evil versus good, the DPP states that convictions will only happen if the prosecution has a solid case with tangible evidence and the prosecutors stand on integrity all the time.
Be firm and fair in your decision making. Ensure that the decisions you make stand the test of time.
The DPP, while acknowledging that many Kenyans might have ended up behind bars due to lack of representation, says that the mandate to have even the suspects represented in court is not under his mandate and wants the government to ensure that a legal clinic is set up for justice to be available to all.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I think we will propose to Parliament to consider amending, is if we can amend the Legal Aid Act and have a sort of Robin Hood tax. And what I have in mind is this. Let the guilty pay for legal aid. Our plan as government is to do a court in every region within a correctional services institution in the country, so that it's easier for you, the prosecutors.
The 77 new officers are expected at their stations in a few weeks' time. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
To a change in leadership, Franklin Mutuma Nkanata is the new NGO Coordination Board CEO, replacing Fazul Mohammed, who resigned in February this year. Nkanata takes over a body with a serious image problem caused by a reputation built on persecuting perceived opponents of the government from the NGO world. NTV's political affairs reporter Kennedy Mureithi looks at the new CEO's challenges and opportunities.
The last occupant of the office Mutuma Nkanata is just about to set foot in was an avowed government enforcer who seemed to target those who did not agree with government. That man is Fazul Mohammed. A case in point is the manner in which he dealt with non-governmental organizations that during last year's elections were deemed friendly to the opposition and hostile to government.
The brazen nature of this attempt also calls to question whether this errant public officer enjoys political support to undertake such an abuse of office.
While at the helm of the NGO board, Fazul Mohammed openly curtailed organizations linked to the opposition such as the Kalonzo Musyoka Foundation, Key Empowerment Foundation Kenya, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, which he delisted, and Africa Center for Open Governance, among many others. Fazul ordered raids on organizations perceived to be close to the opposition and even ordered the freezing of accounts of the Kalonzo Musyoka Foundation. Fazul was terror. He did not care what was said about him as long as the Jubilee government was happy then. He courted trouble at every available opportunity, including controversy surrounding his education background, where his degree was the subject. The school he says he went to said he discontinued his studies. Mutuma is walking into a board where his main job will be first to change the perception among a people who have seen it as a political enforcement arm of government used to frustrate others. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV.
Well, that story takes us to another break on NTV tonight. It's 1:30 the hour. Do stay with us. I'll be back in just a moment.
association with Saiton.
It's time to get the latest from the world of business. And Africa's fast-growing youthful population has largely been described as the continent's greatest asset for growth. Now, this rapid growth, however, also comes with several challenges and risks, including unemployment and rapid urban expansion. Now, Victor Kiprop is at the AfriCities Summit in Marrakesh, Morocco, and now breaks down the continent's population puzzle.
Africa is by all means the future. Well, that's at least if its population figures and projections are anything to go by. By 2030, Africa's population will be 42% more than it was in 2015, and by 2050, 1 in 4 humans will be African.
They are the future of this world, not only the future of Africa, but the future of the world. Half of the young people on earth are Africans.
Take urbanization, for instance. Africa is the second fastest urbanizing continent in the world, with Brookings Institution estimating that African cities will add up to 350 million new city dwellers by 2030. But are our local authorities really prepared for this?
What county governments in Turkana are doing in Kenya, jointly with the national government, is to try and bring forth programs that are going to be supporting the youth, that are going to be focused on this youthful growing group. And the second is that there are city funds that are being accessed through the association, and Mandera has already submitted a proposal for funding, Mandera municipality.
By 2035, the number of young people reaching the working age in Africa will exceed that in the rest of the world, according to the World Bank. However, lack of a proper strategy to leverage on this potential demographic dividend is a recipe for disaster.
All of you are using this device, the mobile telephone. 80% of the coltan, which is necessary for the come from the Congo. Go and look the situation of the Congo. The billions of this industry, where are they going? In the Congo, they fight among themselves, and people are taking their wealth away.
With the world's largest unutilized arable land, a fast expanding technology ecosystem, and a rapidly growing youthful population, experts say that the future is truly for Africa to take. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business, in the city of Marrakesh, Morocco.
Right, away from population and to trade. And Kenya's trade volume with Mozambique is small, according to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Addressing a business forum last evening for Kenya's and Mozambique's businessmen as well as government officials, the president said that the two nations ought to promote business opportunities between them. Well, this comes as the continent's head of state grapple with the challenge of the low volumes of intra-African trade.
African leaders have come to the realization that for their economies to grow, they need to promote inter-African trade, which currently trails that of other continents by significant margins. Consider this assessment of Kenya's trade volumes with Mozambique.
This trade is still very small.
For many African countries, non-tariff barriers continue to pose a serious challenge to trade with each other, hampering the increase of trade volumes. Kenya and Mozambique have a trade partnership that currently favors Mozambique.
In the year 2017, the value of Kenya's imports from Mozambique was approximately $31 million, while Kenya's export to Mozambique were about $12 million.
Kenya is set to host the inaugural Global Sustainable Blue Economy Conference next week, a forum which will determine how countries can harness the potential of water bodies within their jurisdictions.
For more than 100 years, no one knew that in the sea there is a lot of wealth. There are so many resources. They thought that the sea was meant for vessels to move, and we discovered that fishing you could be rich. In the future, with the crisis of the water crisis, we can also use that water for human consumption.
The 3-day forum has more than 10,000 delegates from over 180 nations who have confirmed attendance.
At the moment, a paltry 11%.
Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Elsewhere, Standard Chartered Bank has posted a 35% growth in its before-tax profit in the last 9 months as compared to a similar period last year. The bank posted a profit of 9.2 billion shillings, up from 6.9 billion shillings, attributing this growth to an improved macroeconomic environment and investment in digital solutions. Net interest income was up 6% compared to the same period last year. However, interest income on customer loans and advances declined by 2% to 9.9 billion shillings due to lower average balances. And still on banking, Diamond Trust Bank Group has seen its net profit jump by close to 10% from 5.1 billion shillings to 5.6 billion shillings over the 10 months period that ended in September 2018. Kenya is planning on increasing local maize production in efforts to boost food security and minimize reliance on exports by expanding irrigated land under maize by close to 200,000 acres. Now, according to the PS in charge of irrigation, Fred Segor, the Ministry of Agriculture is angling at growing production from 40 million bags to 67 million by 2022. Speaking during the ongoing Engineering Partnership Convention in Naivasha, Segor also added that the ministry plans on increasing rice production from the current 112,800 metric tons to 408,486 metric tons by the same period. Kenyan small and medium enterprises are preferring to set up their operations in Uganda, a new survey by financial consulting firm KPMG has revealed. While speaking in Nairobi today during the Top 100 conference, KPMG auditor Maurice Gashuhi says that Kenyan SMEs are relocating their bases to the neighbouring country due to the ease of doing business in Uganda. While the conference comes ahead of a gala dinner slated for tomorrow that will see 100 Kenyan SMEs feted for their exemplary performance. The 11th edition of the Top 100 event, organised by the Nation Media Group and KPMG, saw about 1,000 companies apply to participate, but only 300 made the cut. Well, this year the entry threshold for SMEs was lowered to those with a minimum turnover of 50 million shillings from the 70 million shillings in the previous years due to the tumultuous operating environment last year.
Their preferred, destination is Uganda. When you look at the East Africa region, and it's largely due to the environment there. Somehow, from a political perspective, they appear to be relatively, stable. If you look at Uganda, they remain one of the largest partners for Kenya, trading partners. So there's a lot of activity between the two countries. So that the underlying driver, those activities are then supported by the SME largely, because they then ride on that.
Inclusive economic growth and development requires a serious consideration of the opportunities and the challenge faced by SMEs, and this is what contributed to us lowering the threshold from the 70 million to the 50 million. We really wanted to be more inclusive and encourage more companies to participate. So I'm glad this year's theme.
And that's your business news. I'll be back with more. Thanks for staying with us. Amani National Congress Party leader Musalia Mudavadi has accused the Jubilee administration of burdening Kenyans through over-borrowing of foreign monies. Mudavadi says corruption and failure by the current parliament to hold the government to account for its actions has enabled the Jubilee administration to engage in an unchecked borrowing spree.
ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi says the Jubilee administration is engaging in unchecked borrowing of foreign loans at the expense of Kenyan taxpayers who are reeling from the high cost of living, saying most of the huge amount of money being borrowed are exaggerated for individual interests.
Through increased domestic borrowing and continued flotation of additional bonds in rapid succession. This in turn is exerting pressure on the Kenyan citizen through increased punitive taxation. It will be impossible for any successive government to seriously have a development agenda that would benefit the majority of the Kenyan people if these debts continue accruing the way they are accruing.
Mudavadi says the government has been hiding information about assets that have been used as guarantors of the huge loans.
If we have not been able to scrutinize the sessional paper that provided the guarantees on this debt, then we may not be able to really know what was put on the table as collateral.
Ever since the political truce between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga, parliamentary opposition seems to have died. Mudavadi says Parliament has gone to bed with the executive, leaving it unchecked.
Partisan interests in Parliament have seen reports either altered or diluted or mutilated to protect interests other than the interests of the public.
The NASA core principal reiterated the need to form an independent public debt commission to make policy recommendation, oversee audit of funds at public agencies, and help the government avoid bad debts. He spoke at a conference organized by the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya in Mombasa. Vincent Odur, NTV.
And the sports news is up next. I'll be driving that agenda. Do stay with us. With the sports news, Cabinet Secretary for Sports Rashid Echesa and his Permanent Secretary Karimi Kaberia have been given 2 weeks to appear before the Sports, Culture and Tourism Committee after failing to show up for a hearing at Parliament on Thursday to discuss the Sports Amendment Bill. Kenya Table Tennis Association President Andrew Modibo appeared before the committee and appealed to the government to release a section of the sports funds to sports federations.
As I talk to you today, Kenya Table Tennis held an event in March. We've got a debt of 1.8. We got equipment worth 35 million. If we don't pay for those debts, chances are high some of those equipment will be auctioned off. It defeats even the purpose of having international events here.
This submission is good enough, but then our reaction to this submission may not be even there until the substantive bill is here and the PS actually now presents it to us, and from there now we can be able to engage accordingly.
Kenya Sevens head coach Paul Murunga has felt the weight of players' unavailability, selecting a youthful squad to take part in the opening leg of the HSBC World Sevens Series in Dubai, which gets underway on the 30th of November. Murunga will have to do without several experienced regular players such as Collins Injera, Willie Ambaka, Nelson Oyoy, Sami Oliech and Andrew Amonde due to their taking part in the 2019 Rugby World Cup in France. National Sevens Circuit top scorers Daniel Tabu and Johnston Olindi are set for their debut. Now, Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Sports Hassan Nur Hassan on Thursday took the government to task over alleged lack of support provided to athletes as witnessed in the recent amputee stars debacle and no delegation to receive the team Kenya at the airport despite jetting back from the African Inline Skating Championships with 20 gold medals. Hassan spoke at the opening of the inaugural Kenya International Sports Film Festival. Now, Equity Hawks were unable to replicate their previous scintillating form as they lost their final group game against Angola's Interclub in the ongoing FIBA Africa Women's Champions Cup in Maputo, Mozambique. With the scores 44-15 by half-time, the Hawks came out more rejuvenated in the third quarter as they outscored their opponents with 22 points against 17 converted by Interclub. Equity Hawks' Betty Kananu was a thorn in Interclub's side, converting 13 points to emerge as the banker's top converter. Now, upsets marked the quarterfinals action at the International ITF Junior Circuit Tennis Tournament on Thursday at Nairobi Club. Kenya's 13th seed Albert Njogu eased past 11th seeded Ukrainian Paras Pakarenko in straight sets 6-1, 6-4, while unseeded Damain Laporte of Seychelles upset Kenyan 5th seed Ryan Randiek 6-2, 6-4. In the girls category, unseeded Ethiopian Sarah Kasahune shocked top-seeded Madagascan Meli Ranaivo in 3 sets, love 6-7, 5-6-4, while Kenyan Sheila Kotecha qualified for the semis after beating a Serbian Angela Lopikic in straight set 6-2, 6-3. Now, 33 FIFA-accredited referees from all over the country are undergoing a one-week refresher course in Eldoret to familiarize themselves with new rules and regulations covering the games. The training involves physical fitness, theory and other practical exercises. 2 Kenyan referees are currently on assignment officiating at the Women's African Cup of Nations.
We want to identify talent. We need to develop referees for the next generation, and more so we are preparing for the season that is coming, and so FIFA has sent 2 instructors, 1 technical by the name Felix Tangawarima, who has been here for a very long time, ever since we had trouble until we stabilized with the new federation, and we have a physical instructor too from Mozambique who is with us. He's called Bento, and so
And that sports news does it for us on NTV tonight. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. I'll be back again tomorrow night. We'll see you then.